Why didn't you become a doctor? Miss Uma in Danny's home.
The Boy Who Cries Wolf 3. Honestly, this one is a real film.
Hands up the chocolate. We are the guardians of the galaxy.
Hello, it's me, Thunderstruck, and today I'd like to talk about the toxic masculinity of Nickelodeon's All Real Monsters. Now, probably some of you are thinking, how can this show have toxic masculinity? It features feminist icon Trump. Well, let me get you started on the. Okay, that's wow, bad timing. I appear to be getting a phone call. This is most unusual, but I guess I'll answer it live on video. Go for slime.
What are you doing?
What do you mean, Lance? From http://wearesearch.com.
We were trying to have our weekly sinister meeting with the Council of Red Tube to pay homage to the mighty Neolibesaur, praise imperialism, but we were one vote short. Where were you, Matt, from youtube.com/thoughtslime?
Oh, dang. I was leading a workshop on how to use identity politics to divide the left. I guess I'm 97 is much on my plate because I honestly never had to work for a living. I was born rich and I never had to live a finger.
Oh, no doubt. But I mean, still up here.
Lance, I like it. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Did you pledge allegiance to the mighty Neolibesaur, the synthetic gothic hybrid super beast that stands for our synthetic left agenda?
Yeah, I swore the same oath you.
Oh, dear God.
Lance, what's happening? Are you okay? You sound like you've seen a ghost, perhaps some sort of specter haunting Europe.
Worse. He's seen us.
All of RedTube should, go away and shut the hell up after I read this sentence.
It's not fair. It's not fair. There was time now.
Calm yourself, everyone. Maybe he hasn't discovered all the details of our nefarious scheme. Believe in yourself, not the working class, as I've always encouraged you to do.
But I'm so afraid.
Be calm. We swore an oath to uphold the liberal hegemonic order. We knew that you'd lie when we got into this. And by God, we're up to our knees in it now. Oh, okay, so he has no fucking clue what he's talking about.
I'm starting to wonder if he's illiterate.
We're uninitiated. Let me back up and explain who this doofus is. Caleb Malkin is a crypto-fascist, posing as a leftist because it allows him to condescend to people more often. I made a video about him one time when I responded to him, responding to me, because he platformed the turf. And I was like, that's a fucked up thing to do. And he was like, well, real workers don't like slime and other such utter nonsense. Highly recommend you watch that video. It's wild.
I think the best way to understand the difference between this individual and myself is simply to look at the name that he gave himself, Box Slime. Working people are trying to get rid of slime. They're trying to get rid of dirt. They don't like the fact that the infrastructure of the United States is falling apart. So many countries have broken free from capitalism. And when they've done it, they haven't tried to make their countries more slimy and gross. They haven't put up paintings of abstract art in Jackson College. Instead, they have built some of the most beautiful cities, the most beautiful subway systems, the most beautiful gardens that you've ever seen.
He is perhaps most memorable to my audience for having said this.
Burger King.
Burger King.
Now, previously, I might not have been so willing to write Caleb off as dishonest. I might have thought, well, all of his opinions are wrong, but he's just uninformed, but ultimately sincere in his ignorance. I no longer think that. I'll give you an example of why. In his video about me, where you might remember, he he said some pretty wild shit about me. He claimed I was a genocidal Malthusian because I brought up the concept of overproduction in capitalism.
This is him explaining how he seems to understand the class struggle.
The fact that a small handful of rich ghouls owns most of the money and will all die of starvation and exposure if we don't get some of it, even though we're producing more than we need and throwing away almost half of everything at a time when that overproduction is poised to make our planet uninhabitable, just so that the already unfathomably rich ghouls can have a computer readout that says that their wealth increased by 0.0001%. And the only way that you can get the means of your survival is by throwing yourself into perpetual and worsening exploitation forever. Need to worry about making a living and surviving the forthcoming end of the world. Well, the aforementioned handful of rich fools, no.
So according to Mr. Thoughtslide, the problem with capitalism isn't that in the pursuit of profits, capitalists are organizing the economy irrationally, and that even though the levels of productivity are rising, people are getting further and further into poverty. The problem with capitalism is that there's just too many resources being used. Many people in the world, we all have too much stuff, we're overproducing. That's called Malthusianism. And Malthusianism is an idea that Karl Marx thoroughly refuted. Mr. Thoughtslime should read Theories of Surplus Value and read how Karl Marx completely refuted this ideology that there are limited resources in the world and that we're headed towards some kind of apocalypse unless we can drastically reduce the human population and get rid of useless eaters.
Well, it seems like a weird thing to draw from what I said. Is it possible Caleb isn't familiar with the concept of overproduction? Let's take a look at this clip from his video, Destroying Breakthrough with Socialism, Utopian and Scientific.
Drive the workers' wages down, replace the worker with machines. Pretty soon, all these products are going to keep being produced, but the worker is not going to have enough money to buy it. Overproduction, the built-in problem of capitalism, something that 99% of RedTube has never heard of.
So Caleb, you do understand overproduction. That's great. It's weird though. It's a little weird, my dude, how when I brought up overproduction, you called me a Malthusian and implied that I was in favor of genocide in the third world. Some might say that's a fucked up thing to say about someone. Like if you were going to call someone, a genocide apologist or genocidal in some way, you'd have to have evidence that they supported or made apologetic arguments for genocide. Like you'd have to have them on video, right? Walking down the street and just casually mentioning that, that they don't really believe information about genocide. Like for example, hypothetically, what you need to make a claim like that is really strong evidence, or like just someone outright saying, unprompted, that they didn't believe the genocide that is very demonstrably happening is happening. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, in order for you to make a claim like that and just really, really hone in on what I'm saying here, is this is all hypothetical, but if you are going to make a claim like that,
There are a lot of forces that are talking about what's going on with the Uyghurs in China. And a lot of what they're saying can't be confirmed. You dig a little bit deeper, the only source is some think tank or some institute or some policy source that's linked to Saudi Arabia. We're seeing a lot of personal accounts from people. People are saying, well, I was here, I saw this, and they're all over Western media making their claim. And if you look a little deeper, these are people that are just anti-China activists, that have axe to grind.
This video is not just another video dunking on Caleb. This video is about dunking on Caleb for his video, Destroying Breakthrough with the Communist Manifesto.
In the Communist Manifesto, there is a very brief explanation of what socialism is. And I'm going to read it to you, and we are going to talk about this, because there's so much confusion about what socialism is. I've also heard people say communism is when the government does it, right? If the government's involved, that's communism. Wrong. Every country in the world has a government. Every government taxes people. Every government, has a post office or carries out at least some basic function.
One of the most annoying tendencies for scholars and lefties alike is to engage in retroactively assigning political affiliations to historical figures to fit their own narrative. How many times have you heard somebody try to say that Jesus was the first socialist, or that Gandhi was essentially the combined philosophies of the Buddha and Lenin, or that Napoleon was the first party bro?
No one's ever said that.
No, people have said it. Anyway, socialism is a theory that hadn't been discovered at the time of the historical occurrence of Jesus of Nazareth. But it feels good to anoint someone, pun intended, with such a claim because it helps associate someone you see favorably with your own personal philosophy. The same can be said about Karl Hussein Marx, the big kahuna, the chief intergage officer of Marxism.
Take it from me, one of the 5 or 6 people who's actually read Capital, that guy's views were complicated, and he wrote a lot over his lifetime. When Marx was awake, he was writing. His works have inspired millions of people to follow in his footsteps from a variety of backgrounds and academic traditions, some of whom may bring their own baggage to interpret his work. And just like Jesus, some people will try to pick and choose which parts they believe and which parts they ignore.
Or in Caleb's case, which parts they willfully misinterpret and which parts they never understood enough to willfully misinterpret. Take, for example, his point.
This is just like 2 sentences from the Communist Manifesto, and this blows away BreadTube. All of BreadTube should go away and shut the hell up after I read this sentence. Alright. As we have seen, the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class to win the battle for democracy. And the next sentence, the important part. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie and centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state.
Here Marx is arguing that this is the first step in the communist revolution, to centralize all power in the hands of the state, which is, careful note, means the proletariat as the ruling class. Not the end goal, not the essence of communism itself, like you seem to be implying here.
You clown. You absolute simpleton. Have you even read the Communist Manifesto?
No, obviously not, Lance. As an anarchist, I can't read Marx or Lenin or any theory whatsoever lest my worldview crumble before mine eyes.
Here's the thing. Marx and Engels didn't even stand by that passage. Later editions of the Manifesto have a preface that he wrote after the fall of the Paris Commune, which he saw as history's first instance of the dictatorship of the proletariat. In light of that new data, Marx said of the passage Caleb's quoting, "The practical application of the principles will depend, as the manifesto itself states, elsewhere and at all times on historical conditions from the time indeed existing, and, for that reason, no special stress is laid on the revolutionary measures proposed at the end of section 2. That passage would, in many respects, be very differently worded today. One thing especially proven by the Commune is that the working class cannot simply lay hold of the ready-made state machinery and wield it for its own purposes." In order for Caleb to come to the conclusion he did, he'd have to be deliberately ignoring the preface Marx and Engels wrote for later editions, or, not understand it. Marx was a strict materialist. He didn't believe in being doctrinary. When new data came along, he believed in adapting it and incorporating it into his theories.
Well, I'm not a historian, Lance. Can you tell me, has industry changed much since Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto?
Is that you doing a bit?
What I'm asking, are things different since the 1400s when it was written? For workers, do we all still ride our penny farthings to big textile plants, making hats for gentlemen and bonnets for the ladies? Are we still driven mad by mercury fumes? Is Jack the Ripper still prowling the streets of London? Do people still believe the sun orbits the earth? Do we cower in fear of news from the east as the advancing Mongol hordes? Lance, what if Prester John and his armies? Surely he can save Christendom.
Not so.
You got it.
No, I think we need to say the obvious. Communism is a moneyless, classless, stateless society.
What's that?
A stateless society.
Sorry, what? I didn't catch that. What's the what society?
A stateless society.
That's confusing.
Before the state can be abolished, it must be seized by the working class. Once the worker seized power and control of the means of production, we achieve socialism. The market still remains, however, and money is replaced with labor vouchers. Then, once it evolves into the higher phase, it removes labor vouchers and eliminates the state altogether.
So in Marx's view, it's kind of like the Mortal Kombat power with communism being Shang Tsung.
No, you need Shao Kahn.
What, so it's Mortal Kombat 2?
Or Mortal Kombat Mythology, Sub-Zero for that matter. The important thing is that the metaphor is razor thin and open to multiple takedown responses.
It's like Marx never even suggested this was the natural evolution of things. That was Lenin. What's wildest about all of this is if you truly wanted to stand Lenin, which you clearly want to do, Caleb, why not just do that? I mean, I know there's a lot of different ways of defining what is a leftist. Is it looking to evolve the system into something entirely new? Is it just wanting to smash stuff more voraciously? And if it is the last one, why are we following the teachings of Karl Marx when we should be following Gallagher? But here's the rub though. Here's the thing. All of this is pointless. It wouldn't matter if Marx, Engels, Lenin, or Caleb, or me myself were 100% horny for the state. It wouldn't matter if every socialist theorist who ever lived believed with unerring conviction that the state was fundamentally necessary. That alone would not make such an argument correct. There was a time when all medical experts thought it was ridiculous to ask doctors to wash their hands before surgery, even when presented with evidence that it helps patients avoid infection.
We're Caleb right about Marx, and I just can't stress enough that he's cherry-picking quotations that support his arguments. So what? Why should that mean that everyone else must therefore go away? Like, if he stated intent of every RedTube video was just as dispassionate to describe Marx's ideas without adding anyone their own thoughts or opinions, that idea might hold some water.
But that's not what I do, or what anyone I know what RedTube does.
Just so we're clear, RedTube's a Reddit thread. It's just a subreddit on the website Reddit. It's not an organization. There's not meetings. We don't have a council of RedTube meetings. There's like some of us are friends in this loosely connected like group that I guess is branded with the same name.
Case in point, putting Destiny on the cover of the thumbnail implies you either don't understand the group you're attempting to debunk, or you're intentionally muddying the waters to push a narrative.
It's not even controversial or starting drama to suggest that Destiny hates the online left and RedTube as a whole even more than you do, Caleb, because he said it out loud multiple times, like all the time. He's very vocal about it.
Marx didn't invent socialism or communism any more than Newton invented gravity. The concept that labor needs to be exploited to produce surplus value is a priori knowledge, which is fancy speak for it exists independent of human observation, much like mathematics or the Slender Man.
Marx was not a prophet, and I think he'd resent the way Caleb is treating him like one. His analysis is not wholly written delivered unto mankind that we cannot improve or question. He was an economist, and he did a good job of explaining how capitalism works and why that's a problem. He did not coin the term socialism. He certainly didn't invent it. And even if he were offered the definition Caleb claims, it's not necessarily a problem that other people follow other definitions. Unless
you think you're part of the super special boy club, you look at Marx's theory as less of a tool to uplift the downtrodden and more of a confirmation of your own moral superiority for believing it. If you thought being a Marxist made you a good person, a better person, then surely the people out there being less Marxist, or whatever you think is less Marxist, must therefore be being bad people. They should go away. If power is to be centralized in the hands of the state, which I gather from this one sentence I read by Marx and nothing else he ever said, and the state is to be under command of the party, well then surely I must be the one qualified to lead that state. I must wield that power because only I will use it as ordained in Scripture. Yep, you know what? I looked over the evidence in my books. It looks like, wow, okay, you're not going to believe this. Okay, well, what's best for everyone, get this, is if I'm in charge of everything. If all production is centralized through the state, which people who agree with me get to control. And since I agree with me the most, I'm naturally the leader here. Trust me, guys. There's no way that could go wrong. Read the books.
why not, Trickia? Any chance you kill every sparrow in the country? I have a brunch. Sorry, I have a hunch that will improve on crane output. And what better way to test that on millions of people's livelihoods? And by the way, disagreeing with me here is revisionism. And the punishment for revisionism is death by okay, bye. We could make an entire episode on China and how it's misunderstood by multiple points on the political spectrum.
We're not doing that. We're about to put a ball on this thing. We don't need to get into that right now.
Right. So here's the Team Hands version of it. And it goes as follows. There is no question that China has lifted more people out of extreme poverty in the last several decades than any nation before it. It has achieved in that time what took America centuries of economic growth. It didn't do this by rejecting capitalism. It did this by streamlining it. It is a state-owned corporation that is controlled by the CCP. And while the CCP boasts of having 90 million members, at its most generous interpretation, that would mean 90% of the country is making decisions that affect the entire majority.
While it's very difficult to completely know the inner operations of the Chinese Communist Party without getting the messaging clouded by American propaganda, independently collaborated sources put actual decision-making control into even smaller control than that. The voting members who stamp legislation are under 3,000 strong, and ultimately, the final decision on policy and control of the military rests with the command of Xi Jinping. They also have private investment and corporations operating alongside the state-controlled ones.
They do not get ownership or control of the factories or companies. The party does, and the state has total control. They heavily censor all media in the country, including the entirety of the internet. Citizens receive social credit scores. They're involved in mass cultural genocides of the Uyghur and Muslim minorities in the country, so they're an authoritarian state that for a large section of the population can be benevolent in its poverty alleviation. But that doesn't make any part of it communist.
Back to Caleb. Looking at socialism through this lens, that there is one inviolate, perfect path towards mankind's glorious future, makes every other branch of socialism a form of heresy, something which must not be tolerated unless people start getting like, for example, that they don't need me specifically, or people like me to achieve salvation. And I know, I'm using a lot of religious terminology here, because that's kind of how Caleb is presenting his argument. He's not arguing why production should be centralized by the state, simply that Marx and Engels said so, and therefore the rest of us must take it on faith. I'm sure if you asked him, he could present some argument as to why he believes this. I'm sure he has plenty of citations he can trot out. Well, before the October Revolution, Russia produced X number of commodities. After, they produced Y number of commodities. Plenty of statistics memorized, plenty of bad faith accusations. I'm up against anyone who dares to demand proof of his claims. The fact that he does not feel the need to present any of that evidence speaks volumes about what he thinks the purpose of Marxist study is.
It is not a tool for you to understand the world around you. It is, in fact, actually pointless for you to attempt to understand the world. Dangerous, even. That's not your place. Marx has already understood the world for you, and it's your job to follow the script he laid out, as interpreted by people like Caleb.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Mm-hmm. All right.
This is very annoying.
What does that mean? I-annoying? Did you say I-annoying?
No, I would never say that.
Hello. Welcome to the eyeballs. What's that? These are not the eyeballs you were expecting. Lord Oculon can conjure all manner of eyes to suit his great many nefarious purposes. And today is such a day. Speaking of conjuring and nefarious purposes, there's a rather large and significant problem regarding casual racism in the world of the fantasy genre. Her channel, Cheyenne Lynn, has posted a video essay where she addresses all the issues regarding racism in the fantasy genre and her solutions on how to combat it. As always, you can find the links in the description below, and you can also find a master list of all previous victims of Lord Oculon's conquest of dread. Do you have a small leftist project that you feel deserves more eyeballs? If so, send no more than one email to foxlineeditor@gmail.com and make sure you include the word eyeball somewhere in the descriptor to fill out all other pertinent information such as your pronouns, and perhaps you too will luckily find yourselves trapped. Bye-bye.
Hope you like this very normal Foxline video, but very unusual video from the service. If you liked it, you can like and subscribe here. You can also subscribe to the Search at youtube.com/search.tv or twitch.tv/search.tv or weirsearch.com. There's plenty of places you can find them. Both of us have Patreons based on our respective names after patreon.com. For example, patreon.com/thoughtsline or patreon.com/thesearch. These are two examples of Patreons that we have. Enough sharing the limelight. Now it's all about me. If you want to hear more of me talking, then you can do that over at http:// You can do that over at youtube.com/scarycatTV. That's where I talk about horror movies every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also stream on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube and on Twitch, twitch.tv/thoughtsline. It's where I do that. I don't know. What else should I talk about? How's the weather? Where you are. Good. No, I will not be making the video on all their monsters today. That was just a bit from the beginning. I know, because every time I make up a fake video, people are like, oh, you should actually do that one. The joke is that it would be a bad video. I'm making fun of myself by saying, look, this is the type of video that I normally make. This one with the bad idea. See how that joke works? It actually makes.
Gosh golly, I'm one of the good kinds of socialists. What? Gosh golly, not one of the bad kinds of socialists.
Right-wing conspiracy theories have long been the background radiation of conservative movement in the United States. Paranoia about communists hiding in every closet helped galvanize conservatives in the 1950s. The John Birch Society spread the conspiracy theory that President Dwight Eisenhower was behind a communist conspiracy to sabotage the United States from within. Moral panics of the 1980s about devil worship helped the religious right gain a greater foothold in politics. The Republican Party played along, acknowledging in private how these voters played into their hands while shrugging them off in public. During the Barack Obama administration, at the height of the birther conspiracy theory, the President of the United States had to release his birth certificate to the public. Republican response was feigned innocence about this right-wing conspiracy theory. Why even do this? This is a distraction, House Republicans said, knowing full well that they had benefited from this delegitimization of their political opponent for the past several years. Traditionally, the right-wing conspiracy theory begins with a half-truth or a reference to a real event, but with a secret hidden agenda. The greater context or details that debunk this theory are either ignored or labeled propaganda. To a conspiracy theorist, any attempt to debunk the conspiracy theory must be part of the cover-up. This allows the conspiracy theorist to continue believing no matter how often the claim is fact-checked or proven false. For example, the birther conspiracy begins with a real event, the birth of Barack Obama. It utilizes some truths, such as Obama's father being Kenyan, but spirals out into falsehoods after that, all of which have been disproved and discredited over the years by fact-checkers and researchers. Right-wing conspiracy theorists believe in birtherism not because the evidence is compelling, but because the theory feels culturally true to them. It reinforces their pre-existing political belief about the duplicity of anyone to their left, and their pre-existing racist belief about the criminality of African Americans. Endorsement of a conspiracy theory is a form of motivated false reasoning that is used to protect an individual's pre-existing biases. In recent years, that traditional conspiracy theory model has been turned on its head. Now, a conspiracy theory can flourish even without the half-truth or the real event. Instead, a conspiracy theory can gain a great deal of traction simply through repetition, by being adopted by someone in a position of power, or both. In their book, A Lot of People Are Saying, authors Nancy L. Rosenblum and Russell Yearhead described this new conspiracism as conspiracy without the theory. Donald Trump's popularity on social media allowed him to create conspiracies out of whole cloth and legitimize them through repetition of his followers, through shares and likes and retweets. If a lot of people are saying it, and the President of the United States is endorsing it, the conspiracy theory has the illusion of being credible, no matter how incredible the claim. Even with Trump no longer in office, other well-known Republicans are running with these conspiracies without theories. Senator Ted Cruz, Rudy Giuliani, and others are pushing the election conspiracy theory. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and others are using the term deep state. Right-wing conspiracy theories are propagated by two forms of bad actors, the manipulators and the true believers. The manipulators are usually the politicians, the pundits, and others in power. The believers are the targets of this manipulation, the voters, the conservative base. It would be naive to think that Donald Trump sincerely believed his invented conspiracy theories. However, on occasion, the manipulator is also the true believer, someone who fell of right-wing conspiracy theories and who later achieved some political power and continued to spread the theories out of a partly sincere but completely misguided and wrong-headed belief. The most obvious example of this today is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Congresswoman representing the 14th District of Georgia. The sincerity of her wrong beliefs is not something to be admired, even in principle. It only shows her to be more dangerous and even more gullible than the traditional manipulators. She calls for the execution of her political rivals, harasses teenage survivors of school shootings, and engages in the most nonsensical buffoonery perhaps ever seen in United States politics. Nevertheless, she has a vote in the House of Representatives, a microphone to broadcast her outlandish beliefs, and her party is not particularly interested in stopping her. The idea that Greene is only a symptom of a larger problem is both true and misleading. Greene is a symptom of a broader right-wing conspiracy culture, but she is not a mere spectator in that culture. We have to ask ourselves some questions. What does Greene believe? Why does she believe it? Why won't her own party do anything about it? What can we do to prevent the flow of misinformation and the destruction of truth? A common misperception of right-wing conspiracy theorists is that they are poor, uneducated, white trash. But this is a classist stereotype. The far right is actually often funded and motivated by wealthy benefactors, and the true believers are often suburban, middle-class whites. Remember, conspiracy theorists accept their bizarre worldview because it feels culturally true to them, not simply due to a lack of higher education. Marjorie Taylor Greene's father, Robert, owned Taylor Commercial, a prime contractor responsible for the oversight of construction. Greene's family could afford to send her to the University of Georgia, a well-respected institution. She earned a business degree. In 2002, her father sold Taylor Commercial to Marjorie and her husband, Harry Greene. The future Congresswoman did not vote for president in 2008 or 2012, but the candidacy of Donald Trump in 2016 energized her and motivated her to seek out like-minded conservatives on the internet. In 2017, her search led her to write for American Truth Seekers, a now-defunct conspiracy theory website, and Law Enforcement Today, a police propaganda website. Mixed in with her conspiracies were a garden variety right-wing talking points. In one article for Law Enforcement Today, Greene warned of an incredible amount of migrants and drugs invading the country. The article came complete with pictures and grainy videos that allegedly proved her claims. As her articles continued, they became more and more unhinged. For example, an article for Law Enforcement Today was about how Beto O'Rourke, back when he was 15 years old, wrote a short story about two children being run over by a car, Which is true, but Green's interpretation of this was that this alone made O'Rourke unqualified for office, and that writing this fiction when he was a teenager means that he is now secretly a violent murderer. Who knows what you must think of Stephen King? Eventually, Green turned her attention to guns, more specifically to conspiracy theories about school shootings. The conspiracy theorist right has long spread the idea that many of the most prominent mass shootings do not actually occur, and that they are false flags staged by crisis actors. Alex Jones of InfoWars infamously said this about the Sandy Hook massacre. Green speculated that the tragic Las Vegas mass shooting of 2017 was also staged. In general, this theory can be debunked through common sense and critical thinking alone. In order for Sandy Hook or Las Vegas to be staged, an incredible amount of people would have to be involved. Entire communities full of actors would have to be created. Cemeteries, schools, law enforcement, public officials, every local news station, almost every other national news station, many figures within a political party, and more would have to be complicit and with no real evidence uncovered. Experts and mathematicians have conclusively shown that the more people know about a conspiracy, the shorter the amount of time it would take for it to be exposed. Conspiracies do happen. Anytime more than one person collaborates on a crime or scheme, it's a conspiracy. But widespread conspiracies are exposed dependent on how many people know about it. The CIA, for example, has been involved in a number of horrendous and bizarre conspiracies over the course of the last century, but they only remain secret for so long, and even when they are exposed, they are whitewashed as necessary. So yes, conspiracies do happen, but not the kind of harebrained conspiracies that Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about. Greene has taken a more active role in rooting out these so-called false flags. In 2019, Greene confronted and harassed David Hogg, a survivor of the Parkland school shooting. Over the next 2 years, through her articles and Facebook posts, Greene focused her attention on prominent Democrats, spreading nonsense about a Hillary Clinton assassination list and the debunked Seth Rich murder theory. Greene called for the murder or execution of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and Nancy Pelosi. Everything from the ludicrous Pizzagate to the lesser-known Frazzle Drip theory about Hillary Clinton mutilating a child on a videotape that does not actually exist. Many of Greene's theories are tied to her Christian faith, often engaging in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. Greene believes in various anti-Semitic theories about a space laser that annihilates forests, and perhaps an even more offensive one about George Soros being a Nazi. Soros was actually a Holocaust survivor. Her Islamophobia is perhaps even more pronounced. In February 2019, Greene visited the United States Capitol to harass Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, falsely declaring that if they took their oath of office on the Quran instead of the Bible, they are not officially congresswomen. In truth, representatives are not legally required to take their oath with their hand on a Bible. Also that year, in a sign of things to come, Greene called for true believers to flood the Capitol and use violence if necessary to achieve their goals. In case it were not clear already, there is no evidence whatsoever to support any of Marjorie Taylor Greene's claims. There are so many conspiracy theories swirling around in Greene's mind that one might find it difficult to imagine that anyone could believe all of them. But it's important to understand that these conspiracy theories touch upon one another through the connective tissue of right-wing ideology. They are entangled in a larger web of belief, and this entanglement of belief is fostered through the interconnection of social conservatism, religiosity, and a sensationalized media. There is a culture or subculture that contains qualities that makes it a perfect incubator for conspiracy theories. First, we need to broach the sometimes uncomfortable subject of religion. According to various studies, higher religiosity is directly associated with a higher belief in conspiracy theories. Religiosity allows an individual to be more susceptible to supernatural thinking, taking unusual and incomplete data on faith. A study by Professor Inka Jasinskata-Lati concludes that it is not self-categorization, as a person of faith that increases likelihood of belief in conspiracy theories, but the importance attached to that faith. A person of faith for whom their religion is a secondary or minor part of their identity is not much more likely to believe in conspiracy theories, but a person of faith for whom their religion is a primary or major part of their identity is more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. This may explain why a separate study by the Public Religion Research Institute found that white evangelical Protestants are most likely to believe in the QAnon conspiracy theory. When asked about the core tenets of the theory, even without referencing QAnon by name, a staggering 22% of white evangelicals responded that they agreed with its conclusions, and only 21% rejected it outright. By comparison, only 9% of unaffiliated or non-religious Americans agreed with its conclusion, and 57% rejected it outright. Evangelicals believe in the necessity of conversion, of being born again in order to receive salvation. It is not a faith about one's personal relationship with God, but about conversion of the masses to a very specific form of Christianity. An unwavering belief that everyone else is wrong breeds a mindset that any action is necessary in bringing the fold into their belief system, and that those who oppose it are not merely outside of their faith, but actively working against God. A number of right-wing conspiracy theories center on religion, specifically the devil. If evangelicals believe that the devil is influencing government, or that government officials worship the devil, then hostility, harassment, and outrage feel like reasonable responses. Religiosity and political positions are often intertwined. Reproductive rights, separation of church and state, school prayer, marriage equality, and so forth. Evangelicals are far more likely to be conservative and Republican. Thus, their religion makes evangelicals not only more susceptible to supernatural thinking, but also more susceptible to demonizing anyone who opposes their faith-based political positions. Second, a number of right-wing conspiracy theories are about the government, but it must be understood that the right wing does not mistrust the government writ large. I have said this before in a previous video, but it bears repeating here. Right-wing politicians' condemnation of the federal government as an oppressive force has nothing to do with actual oppression by the government, meaning oppression by the police, oppression of other nations by the military, and so forth. Right-wing politicians' condemnation of the federal government has nothing to do with that. It's all about money. The federal government regulates capitalism through safety laws and the minimum wage, and right-wing politicians and their donors don't want that. That is why right-wing politicians tell voters that government is the problem. Their ideology has nothing to do with government. That is merely a boogeyman than what is required. To use a different ideology for comparison, anarchists want to abolish the state and create a more egalitarian society. The right wants to abolish egalitarianism because they believe that egalitarianism violates their strict social hierarchy, natural law. Therefore, right-wing conspiracy theories about government are never actually about oppression. Instead, right-wing conspiracy theories involving the government are about threats to their strict social hierarchy. In the minds of conspiracy theorists, centrist politicians like Hillary Clinton transform into revolutionary figures who want to open borders and change the racial demographics of the nation. Donors like George Soros transform into radicals who want to change the Christian demographics of the nation. The right does not fear the government, they fear sabotage from within. The sabotage of the United States and its traditions, its hierarchies, and they are so terrified of this potential change in the status quo that milquetoast politicians like Joe Biden are seen as communist devil worshippers. The threat that they allegedly pose to their strict social hierarchy, their God-given natural law, motivates belief in the unbelievable. Finally, right-wing media has attached itself to recent conspiracy theories, especially those related to the 2020 election. In a poll conducted in December of last year, only 18% of frequent Fox News viewers accepted the results of the election as legitimate. In a separate poll conducted last year, 43% of adults in the United States trusted Fox News, slightly higher than more legitimate news sources like PBS. Fox News may traffic in erroneous statements and conspiracy, but it has the aesthetic of being legitimate, the appearance of being mainstream, and therefore trustworthy. If a conspiracy theory about, say, vaccinations is pushed on Fox News, its viewers might not recognize it for the fraud that it is. They might recognize it as news. A significant portion of Fox News' primary audience does not get its news from anywhere else, except perhaps other right-wing channels like Newsmax and One American News. The consequence of this is that right-wing conspiracy theories feel real because the viewers have been conditioned to trust right-wing media and mistrust other sources. Any attempt to debunk something said on Fox News or Newsmax or OAN is merely fake news and can be discarded. So why does right-wing media do this? Part of it is merely ideological. They have political goals that they wish to accomplish, but the other part is that it's profitable. Enraged, motivated viewers come back for more. Conspiracy theories are a con. There is more money in fear than in hope. In summary, socially conservative ideology, religiosity, and right-wing media that shelters viewers from legitimate news connect with one another to be the perfect incubator for conspiracy theories. In turn, this allows for an entanglement of theories, all related to Democrats, to the devil, and to secret plots. These entangled theories can coalesce into a singular theory about a secret plot by Democrats who worship the devil. In 2017, Marjorie Taylor Greene began posting about devil-worshipping Democrats. This was weeks before the first QAnon post. The basics of this lie already existed for religious right-wing conspiracy theorists. Q simply popularized it, gave it a name, a brand, a motto, and a new central figure, Donald Trump, the savior of children. Greene attached herself to this right away. For the uninitiated, QAnon was a 4chan op that went too far, baselessly implicating prominent Democrats in an elaborate scheme to capture children for the devil and to drink their precious bodily fluids. Greene used to be elbow deep in this conspiracy, but for reasons that will become clear later, even she has stopped talking about it. In December of 2019, Greene began her campaign for Congress, fully behind QAnon and a host of other ridiculous and tangled conspiracy theories. Greene separated herself from the pack. What once would have been a liability or even disqualifying became her defining feature and biggest boost to her popularity. The 14th district of Georgia is about as deep red as they come. The Cook Partisan Voting Index lists it as the 10th most Republican district in the nation out of the current total of 435 districts. The further to the right, the better. Greene was able to pose with members of the far-right group American Patriots USA and still maintain a lead over her Republican primary opponents. Once sworn in, Greene peddled more and more conspiracy theories on the House floor, including wearing a mask that read, "Trump won." She also peddled the quickly disproved theory that anti-fascists were behind the Capitol insurrection. They were not. In February, Greene harassed Congresswoman Marie Newman by hanging a transphobic sign. Newman's daughter is transgender. Greene has been removed from her House committee assignments due to her behavior, but that is not the same as expulsion. She still has a vote, and she still has a tremendous amount of right-wing media attention to platform her views. The Republican Party has long courted the conspiracy theorist right, the fascist right, the far right, but conspiracists were previously manipulated through a wink and a nod, a dog whistle that justified their beliefs and their paranoia. Now the rules have changed. The dog whistles have been replaced with bullhorns. Why is the Republican Party going all in on conspiracy theories? Some undoubtedly believe the conspiracy, most prominently Marjorie Taylor Greene, but some Republicans are simply doing what politicians are trained to do, manipulate voters to stay in power. Despite the Republican Party sometimes being in power in Congress and the White House, party registration and identification with the party have smaller shares of the population than the Democratic Party. According to Pew Research, 33% of all registered voters in the United States identify as Democrats, 29% identify as Republicans, and 34% identify as independents. Most independents lean more toward one party or the other. By taking independents' partisan leanings into account, 49% of all registered voters either identify as Democrats or lean to the Democratic Party, while 44% identify as Republicans or lean to the Republican Party. That's a 5-point difference. But more simply, there are a lot more people in the United States who side with the Democrats than side with the Republicans. The last 2 Republican presidents only reached the White House due to the Electoral College, not the popular vote. Republicans only have as many senators as they do because a sparsely populated state like Wyoming gets as many senators as a massively populated state like California. Republicans only have as many representatives in the House as they do because of gerrymandering. This is not mere speculation, it's a Republican strategy called Red Map, and the party is openly proud of it. If representatives and senators were apportioned through population, Congress would always be controlled by the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are keenly aware of this. If Republicans lost even a modest amount of voters going forward, their chances of retaking Congress would diminish, and their chances of retaking the presidency would evaporate. The Republican Party has a comparatively less diverse base of voters. They do not have a big tent. Because of their lower registration and their smaller tent, the party has never turned away even the most dangerous voters. And with their party now out of power, the more subtle acknowledgement of the conspiracy theory right has turned into a public courtship. The Republican Party's interest in energizing the conspiracy theorist right has less to do with belief and more to do with mathematics. They cannot win without them. Now, what can we do about this? On an electoral level, not a whole lot. Unsurprisingly, Republicans who are conspiracy theory believers or conspiracy theory manipulators are in deep red districts or states. Remember, Green's district is deep red. She cannot possibly be voted out by a Democrat or an independent, which means the only way for her to ever leave office is through a Republican primary challenge or more unusual circumstances that would prevent her from performing her duties. Expulsion from Congress is theoretically possible and has been suggested by at least one Democrat, but it's extremely unlikely due to the great partisan divide. It requires a 2/3 vote. Thus, the only method in which to combat the manipulators of right-wing conspiracy theory is to combat the theories themselves and to confront the true believers. Unfortunately, this is an incredible challenge. An individual who was previously not exposed to right-wing conspiracy theories but learns about a ridiculous, unfounded theory over the course of a weekend could potentially be saved from going down the rabbit hole. A friend or loved one could explain why the theory is not true and provide sources that debunk the theory. However, an individual for whom their conspiracies are part of their identity, their ideology, their culture, and their personal creed cannot be so easily swayed. Right-wing conspiracy theories are not built upon a foundation of evidence in the first place. Remember, their theories only feel culturally true, and because of this, in order to give up the conspiracy theories, the individual will have to give up their culture. To a right-wing conspiracy theorist, believing that Joe Biden simply won an election has greater consequences than merely accepting a Democrat is now president. Democrats have been president before. To a right-wing conspiracy theorist, believing Joe Biden won the election also means that the people who they trusted were lying to them this whole time, and that all of the interconnected, entangled conspiracy theories must also be lies. The entanglement of right-wing conspiracy theories creates circumstances in which rejecting one means disentangling them all. Because of this, right-wing conspiracy theorists will not allow for the possibility that even some of their most ludicrous beliefs could be false. Learning that everything they ever believed is a lie is too traumatic to consider. On a wider scale, misinformation in public spaces and the internet can only be combated through real information in those same spaces. Many of QAnon's true believers have left the movement, partly because Trump is no longer in office and therefore incapable of fulfilling the prophecy or whatever, but also because of a series of informative, popular documentaries exposing the origins of the conspiracy theory. Even Green is basically done with QAnon, at least in public. As for Green's career in politics, her future is uncertain. She might flame out spectacularly, but representatives in their districts often embed themselves there for years, even decades. Green must never be allowed to become normalized. Once that happens, the needle will move, and it will be difficult to ever move it back.
This video is brought to you by Keats. What up, guys? Greg here, and today we're talking about the USA. Whether you like superhero stories or not, you might have noticed a trend on TV that can be best described as take a superpowered paragon of justice, but then make them real bad. That might mean refashioning Superman into a murderous psychopath named Homelander in The Boys, or recasting Captain America as a vengeful bull and a Falcon and a Winter Soldier. Now, in both cases, these heroes are symbols of America itself. But what we think is interesting is that while they ask the same question, what are we going to do about America? They each offer a drastically different answer. We'll explain in this wisecrack edition, Captain America versus Homelander. Is America hopeless? And major spoilers ahead for both the MCU and The Boys. But before we continue, I want to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Keats. Keats is a subscription service that makes it easier and more affordable for men to treat their hair long.
Folks, are you tired of living constantly under the watchful eye of Big Brother? Are you tired of everything you do being cataloged by big tech, which then sends your information off to a million advertising subsidiaries that they use to catalog every bit of your data and recommend you purchases? Yeah, actually, I am really, wait, hold on. This is a bad opening to something that I'm going to be making fun of because I actually am totally very tired of those things. Well, do I have the wrong solution for you? Current fans like Candace Owens and Jack DeSovier are hyping the $500 Freedom Phone, which appears to be a cheap Chinese handset with a big markup. To those of you who were blessed enough to see this on Twitter, I envy you. I quote tweeted this guy making fun of him, and he blocked me. Not kidding. He calls himself the world's youngest Bitcoin millionaire. I don't actually know if that's true. I mean, here he is getting on or off the plane, so I guess he must have money. Thankfully, he can't hide from me. Blocking me does not stop me from seeing the video on embeds. So how about we take a look, okay? Everyone get ready. Your problems are about to be solved.
The people who banned books. Name one time in history where the people who banned books, media, and opinions were the good guys. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the world's youngest Bitcoin millionaire.
First off, does he not look like the world's youngest Bitcoin millionaire? The jacket he's wearing, I swear to God, I owned in high school, you know? The hair, the glasses, everything, it sells it to me, you know? Yeah, the world's youngest Bitcoin, yes, no. Immediately the impression is yes. But let's not hate. He looks significantly better than I did, whatever the hell age he is.
I made it in Silicon Valley, and I've accomplished a lot in my life already. But now, I'm leaving big tech to fight for free speech. Because the big tech overlords are violating your privacy, censoring your speech, and I think that's so wrong.
That's just so wrong. Dude, I did Silicon Valley, okay? I made a Bitcoin million, and they're censoring your speech, and that's like so bad, dude. Already I'm getting major grifter vibes from this, okay? Anybody whose marketing pitch starts with, yeah, I basically rocked the house, and now I'm coming down to you, tiny peasant, to serve you my genius in the form of this product. That always, to me, it just screams desperate sales pitch.
That's why I created the Freedom Phone, and it's a censorable app store. Everyone is complaining about big tech censorship, but no one is doing anything about it. They say, build your own phone. So I did. Freedom Phone truly is the best phone in the world. It does everything your current phone does, except censor you and spy on you.
Everything that your current phone does, okay? Every single thing. Now, I know what you're thinking right now, okay? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Aren't smartphones an incredibly sophisticated, super duper complicated piece of technology that's really difficult to just build like by yourself? Did he like build a factory to make a new type of phone? Is this genuinely a new product that is being sold to us? The answer is no, of course not. Obviously not. Don't be stupid, okay? Matthew Hickey, co-founder of the cybersecurity firm Hacker House, told the Daily Dot that the phone is most likely a rebranded version of Ubidigi's A9 Pro, an Android-based phone that retails for $133 and can be found for as little as $119. This is a Chinese off-brand Android-based phone that you can find for the cost of 1/3 of all of the DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. Okay, it's being sold for $500.
The Freedom Phone, your freedom of speech is our #1 priority.
Great, it's the First Amendment too.
That is completely uncensored. If an app you love has been banned from the mainstream app stores, you can still download it on ours because we don't ban apps, period. And we've developed.
Wait, you don't ban apps, period. Wait, what about malware? What about child pornography? What? Wait, you don't ban apps, period? Wait, really? Have you thought this through?
The first operating system based on your free speech.
Oh no.
There's no app tracking, no keyboard tracking, and no location tracking. Because I believe in your security.
Okay,
How do we?
I'm going to admit, I don't know that much about technology, but I don't think it's the phone itself that tracks you most of the time. Isn't it usually websites and applications where you agree to like terms of service, which include your data being put over? So what do they mean? If they can't ban apps, then how are they preventing applications from using the same old tricks to track you?
We ensure you're being protected. Say hello, trust.
Trust.
Trust is our privacy button. It's designed to warn you whenever an app or website is tracking you and gives you the option to stop it. Your data, your rules. That's our motto.
Hey, quick question. You know how like every single app in existence doesn't let you use it unless you say yes to the TOS? Wouldn't this just mean that like in order to use the phone as normal, you would have to just accept the violation of your data privacy or not get to use anything? It's not like you're building your own alternative applications that don't track your data. The most you're promising is that you'll warn the person and give them the knowledge if their data is being tracked. But you need to do that to use these apps. So this phone can do everything your current phone can do, except all of it. This phone can tell the time. That is what this phone can do. My phone already tells me when my data is being used. It's part of the terms of service. You are already informed. The only thing you're doing by having an unmoderated app store is virtually guaranteeing that malware is going to exist in every single phone, which probably will be able to circumnavigate whatever security system you're using.
The Freedom Phone is comparable with the best smartphones on the market.
That's not true.
Screen, a super fast processor, and multiple cameras.
Where are the data specs? Just out of curiosity, where are the data specs? Because I looked at some tech sites and you didn't post any data specs on your website. Listen to this. Let's start from a purely technical consumer-facing angle. The Freedom Phone seems to have no tech specs whatsoever. Basic things like CPU, storage capacity, screen resolution, and cellular bands are simply not published anywhere on the Freedom Phone website. According to a press release sent out, it has a 6-inch screen and 128 gigabytes of storage. That's all the details we've seen. Hey, it can do anything your current phone can do. Trust us. Really? For a $120 phone marked up to $500, I'm going to trust you on this one? Yeah, again, It seems to be a simple bulk purchase Chinese Android phone with a light UI skin for working Android OS. Yeah, again, purchasable in bulk from 118 to 35 Pro phone from Alibaba. Everything about this matches. Does anyone remember the Soulja Boy game system? Remember? Like, Soulja Boy got in legal trouble because he was like, I'm making a new game console. And it was just like some cheap ripoff, like, like a shovelware thing, but then he slapped the Soulja Boy sticker on it. Does anyone remember that? That's the vibe that I'm getting from this. Didn't he get in legal trouble over that? I'm pretty sure he did. And then the app here goes on to say that if you really care about privacy, there are things that you can do with your current phone and your current computer to protect your data and your privacy, which is true, by the way. There are things that you can do if you really care about your privacy and your data to protect yourself here. But anyway, don't let me take the stage away from this guy.
And your SIM card transfers into the Freedom Phone seamlessly.
Wait, can't you be tracked by your SIM card? Is there some way that they're shielding the SIM card from tracking? Or I assumed there would be some kind of web call system, like it wouldn't use the SIM. Okay. Trust me. The SIM card includes location. Yeah, I thought it would be like there'd be another way of, okay.
Big tech companies build them up on public communication and the dissemination of information.
Why are you showing Twitter, Google, and Facebook with what you're selling is a phone? Wait, why is the story in this advertisement about big tech social media companies and your solution to it is a phone? What is that? What's the relationship between these factors?
They're using their power. They elect Mark or Jeff to be the arbiters of
Yeah, look at Twitter and Facebook. This isn't about building new hardware. This is them complaining about social media. If you buy one of these phones, you can just get Facebook on it anyway. What?
America, if they still thought it was okay to ban a sitting president from their platforms. If they censor a president, they will censor anyone. Imagine if Mark Zuckerberg censored MLK or Abraham Lincoln. The course of history would have been altered forever.
Imagine Zuckerberg with the time suit. That's 1862 or whatever. That's Abraham Lincoln on Facebook. The North would have lost the war. The Confederacy would have raised. They didn't censor MLK. He died. They both did. What are we talking about? It's
Out of all the constitutional amendments,
wait. Also, how does buying a new phone stop Trump from getting banned on Twitter? Dude, Trump can't get banned from Twitter again. I have a freedom phone. What does that have to do with Twitter? What does that have to do with Twitter?
the reason why founding fathers made the right to free speech very first. I believe you have a voice that deserves to be heard without being censored. Protect yourself from big tech censorship. Let your voice be heard. Live free. Freedom of
Hey, speaking of cut out the censorship, by the way. Any particular reason? Any particular reason why this guy banned me? Hey, what happened to free speech, man? Come on, hey, come on, dude, not cool. Are you censoring my Twitter timeline? Okay, I want more hilarious updates on your amazing and totally authentic 400% marked up phone, 300%, I guess. Anyway, there are a bunch of tech sites. There are tech sites all over the net that are just tearing into this. And I mean, how could they not, right? The funniest thing I saw is that, like it says here, Soviet and Candace Owens got by it. Give the Candace Owens tweet promoting it. Look, I'm a proud partner of this amazing product. Use code Candace, you get 10% off your new phone. Buy Apple and Google. Twitter for iPhone. Which, like, I'm not expecting you to have your Freedom Phone ready to deploy this tweet, but could you not have done it from a computer so it didn't show this? Like, could you not have like gone to a local laptop? The whole thing is so much worse than you think. It uses Aurora Store, which is just a free front end for Google Play, the Android App Store. They can't censor anything because they don't even control the store they use. Wait, really? Dude, this app store is censor free. I know that because we literally can't censor anything here. That'd be like me saying like my local neighborhood is like Bosch psionic control free. Like I guarantee you live in my vicinity, I will not use telepathic powers to kill you from the inside of your brain. Like, well, thank you for the reassurance. From that very real possibility, that very real threat. This guy has done this grip before. He does kind of look like a grifter, doesn't he, with the hair? Wait, from shitty Kickstarters. Oh no, my man, one of my favorite subs. Come on in, bring it in. From our shitty Kickstarters, Marvel, a $100 VR headset created by a teenage self-proclaimed real-life Tony Stark. Raised $100,000 last year, but has no updates. No way, he did a Kickstarter scam? And now he's getting promoted by like Soviet and Candace Owens? Oh, I hope so many people buy this phone. Is the page still up or did they take it down? This campaign is closed. Yeah, here we go. I made it! $100,000 of the $20,000 goal. The Marvel, the first VR computer in OS, works in your slides in Hawaii. What? Play games on a huge screen. Use as many monitors as you want. Wait, how do you get $100,000 with 79 backers? Is this a money laundering scam? Are you money laundering right now? Come on, you little goober. You're not money laundering right now, are you? Come on. Trust me. Can we see the video? I'd love to show it to you, but it got taken off YouTube. I wonder why. I love it. I love it. He did an AMA. Please let it not go. I am a high school dropout that had $1 million with his parents. If I made $1 million before 18, I did not have to go to college. I won AMA. Is this true? I don't think this is true. This is like, and then everyone clapped, and then my parents clapped. Why not just say I invested my college tuition in Bitcoin against my parents' wishes, and then it paid off? Like, why can't we? He said he's a Bitcoin millionaire. Is there much skill involved in that, dude? Of course I'm reliable. I have many skills, like trusting internet friends and sometimes getting lucky. Would you consider further education to improve your writing/communication skills? Your self-teaching, if anyone can get me a Wayback Machine on this thread before this guy deleted his Reddit account, please. Your self-teaching has worked out well for your financial and software acumen if you would have high school communication skills. So the very first comment under this thread is, have you considered learning how to communicate with human beings? Very, very nice. Actually, I need these responses. If you still go to college and study something you can afford it, I know what this answer is going to be. It's going to be some Rick and Morty shit, Any parts of your educational experiences you like? Elon Musk, your hero. Of course. Of course. God, man. Why are some people such stereotypes? Why? There has never been a particular demographic that I have felt more succinctly stereotypes themselves than like the Bitcoin, Elon Musk, Fedora, atheist, internet keyboard, education logic warrior. Like, I feel like if you hit a couple of the points of that type, it like all falls. Like if you knock down 5 of those dominoes, you get 5,000. I don't know. Oh, here we go. From Best of AMA. Thank you, God. Oh man, it's an S. Oh my God. Edit. Thanks for the gold, God. Oh no. All the dominoes. They're falling into place. Okay, so we're getting his life story here. I agreed and dropped out of high school to work on this. A little bit after I dropped out of high school, I had traction with my project. Bitcoin was shooting up. It was going big, 800, 900, 1,000. So I sold a lot of my Bitcoins, which resulted in me gaining a 100,000. And then he moved to Silicon Valley. Oh, God. To the moon! I feel like if we go down this road like far enough, I'm just gonna be making fun of like the ghost of a teenager who turned into a shitdeal being an adult. But Elon Musk has always been a hero of mine. He's the closest we have yet to a real life Iron Man. Oh, God. Proof it's really me. Maybe it's for the best this time. So, what are the lessons we're learning from all this, I guess? Every conservative should go out and buy the Freedom Fund. Every single one of them. All of them should go do that. And they should only use that fund. That's one. Two, it really is interesting how that guy, like, kind of went down the libertarian to right pipeline, you know? Like, this guy probably started out as, like, an eclectic, daring, internet culture obsessed financier. And hey, he made it lucky, and made it big, and he made a lot of money off Bitcoin. And dude, whatever, people get lucky sometimes. The Elon Musk worship is pretty cringy, but I've been cringy in my life. I don't really have that much of an issue with that. It's funny, though, that he then took that wealth and he turned into a scam artist. I bet you, though, it's not that he's a deliberate scam artist, it's that he has no understanding of how mediocre he actually is. Often when people get really lucky early on in life, they think that their ass like does fit and that their feet don't touch the ground. And they spend their entire life failing upward because they have no understanding of their actual limitations and they can't tell the difference between success through luck and success through skill. Hence that failed Kickstarter program, and hence this Freedom Phone thing. And I do think it is very distinctly funny that every element of this guy's personality and aesthetics screamed libertarian tech bro, but then he would come out in support of Trump. You know? It really is. I hate the political compass acts with the political chart means because it really does give the impression that there's some kind of significant ideological barrier between right libertarians and right conservatives. A barrier that just doesn't exist much in practice. A ton of the people who act like that online, yeah, dude, I'm super pro freedom speech, then turn their eyes away whenever Trump or any of his party members do such obviously authoritarian things, like him trying to control the educational system in this country through a partisan and political lens, like him trying to take the citizenship of people who burn the flag, like him trying to bring the military down on BLM protesters. So they don't care about all of that, but like Facebook banning conservatives for violating TOS of Facebook. Now we gotta move into action. Now we gotta sell a Chinese Android phone with a 300% markup. The Freedom Phone, I don't know, dude. It's funny stuff. It's good though. It's good. I'm glad he's kind of fun. I hope that moving forward, all of his future financial endeavors only hurt conservatives. Because I know there's not a single liberal who's going to buy the Freedom Phone. You know, I hope his next one, you know, is like the Freedom Car or something. It's like a $400 like retooled like Soviet surplus, you know, like a jalopper, and he claims that it has like paint refractions that convince cops that your driver's license is currently verified or something. I don't know. He would probably sell that. Like that would be, he would sell like 10,000 units if he did that, you know? Just a quick paint job and like, yeah, dude, the Windows broadcast your up-to-date driver's license or something with your cops. It has no seatbelts or airbags. And the tires are just solid rubber. They are not filled with air. to save on tire maintenance. Down the line. $20,000. The Freedom Wheel. It's like the Flintstones. It doesn't have an engine. You just have to pedal. Oh, God.
To today's episode of Do You Know Something Better to Do, starring this guy.
It's a beach. Are we supposed to dress modest at a beach? What is God's face?
I like that this guy apparently looks at the preachers with the megaphones of school campuses calling people whores and you're going to hell and blah blah blah. They're like, that's too tame.
I go to the actual beach to harass women for wearing. Well, women wear at the beach, right? Just because both of us look like a bunch of Play-Doh smushed together with our shirts on doesn't mean other people have to keep their clothes on. Also, be honest, Greg. You're doing this so you can just chat up young girls in bikinis. You creepy, weird D-bag. Anyway, welcome back to the Philip Franco Show. It is Tuesday, June 21st, 2021. Hit that like button, otherwise we'll punch you in the throat. Let's just jump in. It's the 20th. Oh my God, it's July. The first thing that we're going to talk about today, easily one of the most requested topics, it involves gambling, and a YouTuber, spotlighter, shitster. Some have been known to call him a skin legend, that Ethan Klein. That's in part because post-Brandy's breakup, Ethan Klein has returned to Twitch, announced a new project called H3 TV, but he often, because he's already making waves on the platform. And he named one of the current hot button issues about gambling and gambling streams. Well, he has previously spoken about it. This time he went on Twitch where these streams are having called out specific creators, which it makes sense for two reasons. One, when you have a big YouTuber calling out big Twitch streamers, sometimes there's not a lot of audience crossover, which is also why, two, it makes sense from just like a marketing standpoint. You're gonna stir shit and blow up a story. There's a lot of hate who love to use the game by actually doing it on Twitch. Yeah, with this calling out a massive creator by the name of Dave Ross, who's made headlines for a number of reasons recently. Yeah, contributing to this story, headlines for the amount of money that he gets from gambling streams, and that he's recently accused of participating in pump and dump crypto schemes.
Second one is upheld pump. So this kid, Adam Ross, man, really pissed me off lately. The gambling and crypto, he's just not a good dude. He's willing to do anything to just make money off the back of his fans. And then laugh about it.
And with that, people sharing clips of that. You also people pointing back when Aiden Ross laughed about when he promoted a crypto and was like, I really hope you guys didn't buy that. Like, I don't give a. I don't know if you guys actually bought it. Yeah, even also moving on to other creators like Trainwreck, who's popular for gambling, also landing in controversy.
I personally find this to be really, 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 really messed up. That, you know. Let's see what he's up to right now. Just watch train wrecks get kids up to gambling. It's awesome.
Also, interestingly, even then ended up hopping on a stream with other people, including Aiden Ross, where they flipped a bit more on the time, but kind of left things on a standstill. And you know, I've never seen you smile before. It's a little soul.
I don't do gambling online. I mean, I would say more evidence.
How does doing gambling online determine if it's soul or not?
Well, because you have no problem peddling gambling to children.
Right, naturally, all of this resulted in other big trainers talking about it, including XQC, that even has a lot of terrible takes.
And a lot of them are truthful, but there's a lot of lies in there. And ask to disprove the arguments, and nobody replies. They just throw me under the bus. Bunch of bullshit. And don't even reply to get counter arguments. That's just first on order.
Also regarding XPC and people pushing back, saying that he only really has an opinion on this topic, because he's been previously hit for gambling streams, but he no longer does them. While it's not new that we've seen criticisms here and there, it is notable that we are seeing bigger and bigger creators calling out others. Because, this isn't even an isolated incident. Coffeezilla, for example, we've been talking about a number of times over the past 2 weeks, recently calling out Steve will do it of the No Boys. There's a lot of gambling content out there. Steve will do it. Sometimes he's losing money, sometimes he wins huge. Those two also recently going at it together on Twitter. Yeah, ultimately with this story, I'd love to know your thoughts specifically on the gambling side stuff. Because I'd like to think that most all of us are on the same page regarding the crypto aspect of the story. Right? There's a big influencer that has a dedicated audience, and you're just taking a massive amount of money or a massive amount of token that you're immediately selling off, and then you're shilling some shit token to your audience. There's scumbag, and it has nothing to do with hustle, right? There are creators that think of their audience as people and community, and then even a number of those people see their audiences as money, or in some aspects as money. And then there are people that see their audiences as money and then fuck them even if they get fucked over because it's about me getting my bag. That's not awesome aspirational hustle culture. That's scumbag move. Hey, no one's perfect. People can make some bad decisions or a mistake here or there. And then there are trends. The repeated behaviors that expose who you are and what you're about. So that's why with this story, I'm focused more on the gambling stream aspect. Then in sports news, it's not really sports news. Let's talk about the policing of women's bodies. Because today we have two completely different stories, but they connect in one place, and that is a woman's body. On one hand, you have the Norwegian women's beach handball team making news right going against its rival Spain on Sunday. But as you can see here, they chose not to wear their black bikini bottom that they usually wear with their sports bras, instead wearing matching pairs of form-fitting blue athletic shorts. Luckily, when you hear that, you go, okay. And well, the league ended up fining them for not wearing bikini bottoms, but all because they wanted to wear something that was less showy and more comfortable. And hey, like I said, I understand that rules are rules, but it really feels like a weird rule that's put in place so you can see more booty. This feels like something that was put in place to get more men to watch. And you know what? Men are able and sanctioned to play in shorts, so should the women. I just think it's simple. But then, on the other hand, you have Paralympian Olivia Brain, who's a 2-time Paralympian champion, being told by an official during the English Championships on Sunday that her shorts were too short and inappropriate. The Brain questioned whether a male athlete would have been asked the same thing, and saying tonight I feel disappointed, noting that after she finished her long jump, one of the female officials found it necessary to inform me that my sprint boots were too short and inappropriate. I was left speechless. A big note here saying, I have been wearing the same sprint style boots for many years, and they are specifically designed for competing. Once again, I just have to say that unless this is giving people an unfair advantage, but from that, I want to take a quick second to thank a fantastic sponsor of today's show, Noom. Now, I started using Noom several months ago because I was ready to develop healthier habits. Well, nowhere near perfect and not even that far on my road, and I'm already feeling better, not as sluggish or unmotivated as before, especially at the peak of me not making the best decisions of what or how much I was consuming or exercising. Basically, Noom's a new and different way to lose weight, get healthy, and achieve your goals using proven cognitive behavioral therapy tools and practices. It's different because it leverages psychology and science to help people live healthier lives. And honestly, I'm realizing the more that I get into it, the more energy I have. And with my two little insane boys, the more energy I have, the better. With tons of articles and real-life coaches to support you. Once again, shout out to my coach Stephanie. Thanks for it's basically empower you to strive for progress, not perfection. Just do what works for you, which is the kind of encouragement that I need. It helps me improve in my habits daily. So what health goals are you trying to achieve? Think about that and then head on over to trynew.com/Phil and take New's 30-second quiz for free to create a truly custom program for you. Then, definitely got to mention this morning, Amazon founder and the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, getting blasted into space in a definitely not a metal penis rocket trip that peaked at 66.5 miles above the Earth. It was rather quick, it was over 10 minutes. Kind of like what we saw with Richard Branson about 10 days ago. The reaction was divided. Some loving it, some excited about this sort of advancement and the opportunity potentially in the future. Also, you get a lot of people frustrated. You get a lot of people cheering Bezos on. You get this billionaire in space, meanwhile, his employees suffer. And I'm pointing to a number of the controversies we've recently seen with Amazon. With this story in those comments, I'd love to know your thoughts on that aspect of the story. But I also gotta say, still so confused about the auction aspect of this story. Because you might remember there was an auction to actually get a seat on this raft. It was reportedly won by an unnamed person paid $20 million for an open seat. And last Thursday it was reported that person had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. What? I need to know more. How much money do you have that you're like on the phone, you're like, I'd love to go to Top Golf, but I'm supposed to go to space. yeah, fuck it. Okay, yeah, I'll move it. Who, why, what, when? I need to know. It was great news for Oliver Damon, who's the 18-year-old recent high school graduate that he gave the ticket to. Yeah, I just need to know. And in unexpected political news, we had Tom Brady making headlines because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were at the White House. He was speaking to the press, and then he cracked a joke with Joe Biden.
It didn't look great there. At one point, we were 7-5, struggled a little bit, as the president alluded to. But we found a rhythm. We got on a roll. Not a lot of people, think that we could have won. In fact, I think about 40% of people still don't think we won. You understand that, Mr. President?
If you look, the social media, that's been received how you would expect it would be received. At this point, really the only question is if the former guys could issue some sort of statement around it. Also, while we're talking about politics and clips of moments that are going viral, we should talk about Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci. This because during a hearing today, Rand Paul accused Anthony Fauci of lying. But there heated exchange over whether the National Institutes of Health funded controversial gain of function research or lab. Specifically research involving enhancing the virus and studies of disease cost impact, which is something that Paul claimed may have contributed. Randy Fauci previously told the Senate that the NIH funded such research, which Paul claims is a lie. But in response, we saw, among other things, Fauci saying today that it was practically impossible for virus to look at in its studies as a result of COVID-19. And
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you're referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you. I don't think I have anything further to say. This is a pattern that Senator Paul has been doing now in multiple hearings based on no reality. He's talking about gain of function. This has been evaluated multiple times by qualified people to not fall under the gain of function definition. I have not lied before Congress. I have never lied, certainly not before Congress. Case closed.
So understandably, because the situation is so tense, Fauci is speaking so plainly here. This moment of viral, and it's a very broad statement. It is oversimplified, but not to do that too much. This feels like another example that nothing really moves the needle anymore. If you look online, people that watch the same thing have drastically different opinions of what happened. Some say Paul rocked Fauci, others say Fauci rocked Paul. Well, I think back to 6 years ago, and I talked about it feels like we have everyone in these hardcore camps slowly eating through to the center. It really feels like that is the reality. That it's not really about changing minds anymore. It's all about activation. And there are some people that are kind of on the margins. They and maybe you are movable thanks to information and development. So I don't know. Actually, so this is going to be where I end today's show. And obviously, I want you to let me know what you think about this last story. Anything that stood out to you today, but I'm going to just end on a last question. When was the last time you had an opinion on something and then new information? And that one's just for the 12 of you still here at the end of the video. Ultimately, with this story,
if you've watched any of Fox News, you've probably noticed that there's a theme with their women on there, namely their anchors and presenters. I mean, I guess you already know what I'm talking about, but I'll say it anyway. They all look the same. White, tan, blonde, shoulder-length hair, middle-aged, slim, usually wearing a bodycon dress that's a solid color with no pattern, and to top it off, a pair of heels. Not flats, not kitten heels, just heels. You may get some deviations here and there, maybe a brunette or a woman of color, but they all still adhere to the style of their blonde counterparts. They embody the standard of beauty that's long been established in American society, one that's been dominant for hundreds of years now and has been promoted far more aggressively since the 1950s with the advent of television, advertising, and other visual mediums. Of course, the presenters on Fox News don't arrive at the door of the studio packaged like a Barbie doll ready to be put in front of a camera. Just like any other news network, how their anchors look is decided upon by committee. Meticulous amounts of research goes into figuring out the kind of people audiences want to see on their screen to ensure that they like what they see, to prevent them from changing the channel to hear the news from someone else, hearing their perspective on the world or the wrong perspective. Beautiful people being used to sell things is nothing new. I myself have made multiple videos on the subject. If you take a product and advertise it with the inclusion of a pretty face, then the likelier it is that a person will buy into it. But in recent times, it's become more apparent that delivering ideas via a pretty face is just as effective. In some ways, this has been utilized for good, such as using celebrities to promote good causes or convincing people to vote. On the other hand, it's been utilized for far more insidious purposes, turning conventionally attractive women into a paid mouthpiece for spreading misinformation, lies, and even hatred. This isn't just on television, though. The internet has given rise to a new breed of conservative woman that can influence audiences via social media and YouTube, many of which have amassed huge audiences, gained notoriety, going as far as appearing at congressional hearings, and become extremely effective at indoctrinating and affirming the beliefs of disenfranchised young men. In the deeply right-wing online manosphere, misogyny is all too common, and conservative influencers have been happy to profit financially and socially by pandering to their beliefs, confirming their suspicions that feminism and women maintaining autonomy of their own bodies is making the lives of men more difficult, a message that feels far more valid when said through the mouth of a woman. What I want to look at is how news media, especially on the conservative side, has used women to reach through to male audiences to spread their agenda, how they've become a tool to undermine women's freedoms and rights, including their own. What kind of people and institutions are financing the work of conservative influencers, and what do they stand to gain from it? Lastly, I want to discuss how these women are causing tremendous harm to their gender by convincing others that they should be removed of their rights and continue to be seen as less than men. Let's explore how right-wing media weaponizes women. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to talk about this video's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. The internet can be a wonderful thing, but as we all know, it has a shadier side. It's almost impossible to comprehend how much surveillance is happening. Even with your regular browsing habits on social media, shopping websites, and search engines, your data could be being mined and your personal information is being given out without you even noticing. Surfshark VPN can help you with this, and it is ridiculously easy to use. Just download and install the app, click connect, and within a matter of seconds, you're on a secure and fast connection. Check this out. This is a demonstration of me using the desktop app in real time. There we go. In a matter of seconds, my location is now in Manchester. It's more than just security too. Plenty of websites geo-block content, which means that if I get a bit homesick and want to watch content from the UK, then I can use Surfshark to watch content from streaming services like BBC iPlayer. You can even watch content on services like Netflix or Disney Plus that isn't available in your country. Thanks to the Surfshark extension, you'll have access with just a couple of clicks. It's super easy to use, it keeps you protected, and it opens up the web just like it should be. It's also available on Android and iOS, so you can be protected on the go. That way you can use open Wi-Fi networks like in airports and coffee shops, so you can focus on pretending to work on your laptop and not have to worry about your identity being stolen. Use the promo code SOLARI to get 83% off, plus an extra 3 months for free. They also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk if you change your mind. Surf the web safely today, link in the description. The majority of conservatives in America and many other countries around the world are men, specifically heterosexual men. And although there are plenty of conservative women, Conservatism as an ideology believes that men should be the driving force in society, but the natural order of the world should have men in charge making the big decisions, including how women are to live their lives. This is happening right now in many, many ways, including how many countries have laws in place which make it difficult or even illegal for women to get an abortion, or prohibit them from getting birth control medication. Even on a greater institutional level, men have created circumstances in which women are paid around 70% of what men do, a figure which is much lower for women of color. For conservative men, this is just the way that things should be. It's all justified by them for all kinds of reasons, none of which are particularly good. But a lot of women who have been raised conservative also subscribe to these values, accepting that they are less than men, that women aren't emotionally or mentally equipped to wield power or make the big decisions. It's like how you'll get people who say that there shouldn't be a woman president in the US because their menstrual cycle will drive them to make irrational decisions like starting a world war or launching nukes, which, to be quite frank, is pretty rich for a country where its citizens only learn about the existence of other countries when the military invades them. I don't want to be president.
The presidency is a man's job.
I know women are qualified to be president.
No.
Conservatism is also an ideology of power, though. So the thought of handing that power to a group of people who have never handled that much before is a terrifying thought for some, and a threat to the natural order. I also want to clarify that I am in no way suggesting that conservative women have no autonomy. They have their own desires and ambitions just like anyone else. There are plenty of powerful and influential women within the conservative sphere, but ultimately conservative ideals work against their interests, or at the very least, against other women. As history has progressed, though, women have been able to claim some of that power for themselves, much to the chagrin of certain male-dominated groups. Like many institutions, for a long time the news was considered the domain of men. Not only would they run the networks, but they would also decide what we need to hear and who we would need to hear it from. It was only in 1976 where Barbara Walters became the first woman anchor of a nightly news broadcast on ABC, only one of 3 news networks at the time in the US. Quite shockingly, it was only in 2006 when Katie Couric became the first solo female anchor of a nightly news show. Of course, women have had a considerable presence in the news throughout the years, but judging by the fact that it took so long that they were given an opportunity to fly solo, it's safe to say that they weren't given the same amount of trust and authority as men. Fox News has also given platforms to women as well, one of the most notable ones being the Ingram Angle, hosted by Laura Ingram, where she covers various current affairs and points while injecting them with her opinion, which happens to be in alignment with the network's fighting ideology. Her viewership pales in comparison to Tucker Carlson, though, who consistently has the most viewed show on cable. As we began to consume most of our news online, especially younger generations who don't watch much television, there's been an influx in women who are involved in the production of news,